shut they mouth. Turn up the music to drown them out. Cause I ain't tryna hear how you down and out. Took little mama down in the cellar. Said if I keep it low, she'll get me together.
Bitches in the living room getting it on. Bitches in the living room getting it on. Bitches in the living room getting it on. They ain't leaving till 6 in the morning. 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 They ain't leaving till my mama ain't home.
Well, back in the day when I was a teenager, I didn't have shit, a cell phone or a pager. I was good at making paper, always quick to pull a caper. Anything to make a dollar, turn to something greater. That's me, you can call me Skinny D. True certified OG, class of 93. Had a couple little freaky deeks riding for the team. They did anything I wanted and they gave me what I need. Called them my bad mama jamma, and they called me sir. Bought them a fresh pair of panties and the fly me fur. Threw a pajama party, invited one and she brought her. I had the weed and they brought the liquor. Came through the door kissing and I didn't say a word. They just grabbed me by my hand, now I'm coming in third. Yup, we cut, they gave me what I deserve. By 6 in the morning, kick the chicks to the curb.
Bitches in the living room getting it on. Bitches in the living room getting it on. Bitches in the living room getting it on. They ain't leaving till 6 in the morning. They ain't leaving till 6 in the morning.
Remix.
Negative, nothing further.
It seems to be on my mind is us. All that seems to be on my mind is us land. All that seems to be on my mind is us. All that seems to be on my mind.
What's good? What's good? What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red, and we're back for another one. All right, y'all. Let me check the audio real fast. Make sure everything's working. Get it poppin'. All right, y'all. So today's topic's gonna be. I just basically want to finish the conversation about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. and the split of the fight. Is it fair? Is that split actually fair for both parties involved? All right, let me check the audio. All right, so we up, we good, we going. All right, y'all. So my question to everybody is, I don't know how long I'm gonna stay on here tonight, but my question for everybody is the split between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. fair on both sides? Is Errol Spence getting what he deserves out of that split? Is Terence Crawford getting what he deserves out of that split? And then I want to just talk about George Kambosos' pound for pound ranking. Where does he deserve to be placed on the pound for pound rankings when the new rankings come out? All right, so let's start off with Terence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. What's good, man? Whoever's in here, man, drop me a like, man. Hit in the comments, so I know who you are. So I just want to talk about the split, man. I feel like this. I feel like number one, I think that the whole 50-50 talk is kind of an excuse to me. I don't feel like that I don't well listen, I don't feel like that Terence Crawford deserves a 50-50 split, number one. Uh and I feel like Earl Spence not coming off of the 50-50, not coming off of, his 60-40, to make it 50-50 is a deliberate stance to maybe, force the fight not to happen. Maybe Earl Spence doesn't want the fight to happen. But at the same time, maybe Terence Crawford don't want the fight to happen either, simply because somebody's going to lose, man. Somebody's losing that after that fight happens. And I feel like both guys are kind of leveraging, whatever power they have. And on Earl Spence's side, it's the 60-40. on Terence Crawford's side is, well, hey, I want 50-50. So I kind of feel like both guys are kind of using the split as an excuse not to make the fight. And it's simply because nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose their O. Both guys want to feel like they're the best. And when they finally do match up, somebody has to lose. So I think that's the first argument that could be made. It's kind of like, why both sides kind of stalling this fight from happening in the first place? Why isn't one guy willing to give? We all know that Errol Spence is technically the A side because he has the majority of the belts. He has two or three belts. Terence Crawford has one. Ugas has one. So he has the majority of the negotiating power, if you ask me. At the same time, Terence Crawford is a champion. He's a multi-weight champion. He held all the belts at 140. He's been a linear champion. So he feels like he brings a lot to the table. Uh, what I think people are getting it kind of confused is I think Earl Spence is looking at it like this. I did all of this in the welterweight division. I'm claiming that I'm the best in the welterweight division. I don't care what you've done outside of the welterweight division. I'm speaking simply about the welterweight division. And I think that's where he's coming from. I'm the king of the welterweight division, so you have to dethrone me to become the king. And I feel like that's another talking point that people could actually use. Like, Terence Crawford is what's the word I'm looking for? He is he's a praised and a highly praised fighter at 140. He came in he came in with a lot of accolades when he came up to 147. He was recognized for being the greatest fighter at 147. So I think he's looking at it from that standpoint, and I think Earl Spence is looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, I'm strictly speaking about welterweight. I want run the welterweight division, and you have to dethrone me at welterweight. So, I think that would be the second talking point. Also, I feel like that, Terence Crawford, to me, in a way, has to earn his spot. Unless he can get that belt from Ugas, which I don't see how. I don't see how that fight comes together anytime soon because of the mandatory situation with Ugas. I don't see how. Excuse me. I don't see how either guy fights Ugas at this point because of the mandatory situation with Ugas. But I do feel like Terence Crawford has to earn his spot, and I do feel like Spence is the A side. So, with that being said, I don't personally feel like the 50-50 is a fair split. I think 60-40 is a legitimate split. He's getting a good piece of the pie, 40%. And, Earl Spence is getting what he deserves, a 10% boost for being the unified champion and being the number one ranked guy at welterweight. So I really don't see people's argument when it comes to the whole 50-50 talk. I don't, it takes nothing away from Terence Crawford, but at the same time, you got to make it fair. You can't take nothing away from Earl Spence either. You got to give him his props and put him in the right position to make his money as well. Because at the end of the day, you got to look at it like this. If Earl Spence gives him a 50-50 split and Terence Crawford beats him, he's going to miss out on so many millions of dollars. It's going to be ridiculous. And he could have easily just got those millions of dollars by sticking to his guns and sticking with the 60-40 split. If he gets beat, it's going to be all bad for Errol Spence Jr. And there's no way Terence Crawford is going to turn around and say, "Hey, well, I got what he'll have 4 belts at that time." there's no way Terence Crawford is going to turn around and say, hey, well, I'm going to give you a 50-50 split in a rematch. There's no way. The split is going to be so ridiculous in the rematch that, it's going to be all in favor of Terence Crawford. It might even end up being 65-35 or something to that nature, or even 70-30 if Terence Crawford beats Errol Spence. So, I hope that's not my alarm. Where's my keys at? It ain't me. Somebody out there. Man, so many junkies running through this neighborhood, just going through people's cars, man. It's ridiculous. All right, so what was I at? Yeah, and the point I'm trying to make is that there's not going to be a 50-50 split in the rematch. That's what y'all got to understand. If Terence Crawford beats Errol Spence Jr., does Errol Spence Jr. then turn around and get a 50-50 split in the rematch? Will he get a 50-50 split in the rematch? It's not going to, there's no way that that's ever going to happen. There's no way Terence Crawford turns around and says, hey, well, just to make it fair, you gave me a 50-50 split in the first fight, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a 50-50 split when we do the rematch. There's no way in hell that happens at all, man. And I think that's the main point when you think about the split of the money. What's going to happen in the rematch? What if Terence Crawford actually beats him? What does Errol Spence do then? It's a lot of question marks when it comes to that money, man. It's a lot of reasons why Errol Spence doesn't want to come off of his 60-40, or even maybe even a 55, a 55-45 split, which I think is still unfair in Errol Spence's direction because he deserves at least a 10% boost for being the unified champion. It would have been different, like I keep saying, if instead of fighting Sean Porter, Terence Crawford would have went ahead and fought Ugas. He should have went ahead and fought Ugas, got that belt from Ugas, and he would have a lot more leverage when it comes to negotiating the Errol Spence fight. But at this point, if he wants that fight, he's going to have to take probably like a 60. It's going to end up being like a 60-40 split. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you want to, compare the two fighters. Personally, I think that's how it's going to end up. Uh, what else I want? I want to talk about the George Kambosos pound for pound ranking. What does George Kambosos deserve to be on the pound for pound ranking when the new rankings come out? But I'm pretty sure it's going to go Canelo number one, of course. It's either going to be Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. as number two. And then you got a real battle that's going to happen for the third position, which will either be, it's either going to have to be Crawford, Spence, or Kambosos. And you can make even an argument for Kambosos being put at the number two spot because of how he accomplished winning all those titles, going in there and beating the champion in the way that he did and doing it in the fashion that he did. And then then you have Terence Crawford and Errol Spence not even fighting each other. So personally, I would think that they're gonna shortchange George Kambosos. He's gonna end up number 4 on the pound for pound ranking. I think it's going to end up being, of course, Canelo, either Crawford or Spence at number 1, and then at number 2, and then either Crawford or Spence at number 3, and then they're going to lowball George Kambosos and put him at number 4. This is how I feel, man. Let me know what y'all think. Hit me up in the comments, man. Let me know how y'all feel about where George Kambosos should be on the pound for pound rankings when they come out. Does he deserve to be higher than, probably number 4, number 3 at the best? I doubt they'll give him the number 3 spot, but he'll more than likely end up somewhere around number 4. And, of course, Canelo's an automatic number 1. And He's automatic number one in the pound for pound right now because nobody else is challenging themselves. No matter what you say about Canelo, he does challenge himself. He's been the most consistent. Nobody's fought more during the pandemic than Canelo, and nobody has won in the fashion that Canelo's won during the pandemic. So he's got an automatic number one spot. Number two, it's going to be a battle between Spence and Crawford, of course, for pound for pound. Who is that? GM says number 9. Well, you put him all the way there. I mean, he's the unified lightweight champion of the world. He has to be in the top 5. Is he the only? No, he's only missing one belt, and I think that's the belt that Devin Haney holds. So he's one fight away from being, I think, the only, other than Tyson Fury, unified champion, completely unified champion out there. I believe Tyson Fury has all the belts at heavyweight. So it would only be him. Well, I take it back. I think Canelo. Does Canelo hold all the belts at one? At one, what is it? 175, 170? Is it 170 or 180 that Canelo has all those belts at? Somebody in the chat let me know. Where does Canelo? How many belts does Canelo actually have? I have to look that up. I gotta look that up right now. What belts does Canelo hold? What belts does Canelo have? Canelo Alvarez, age 31, 56 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. Belts currently held WBA, WBC, and WBO super middleweight world titles. Belts previously held WBC and WBA super welterweight world titles, WBC, WBA, and IBF middleweight. The world titles, WBO light heavyweight world title. Okay, interesting. So he has all the belts. Canelo has all the belts at super middleweight except for one, which is the IBF middleweight title. I'm not sure who's that. Let me check and see who's the IBF middleweight title holder. IBF middleweight champion. Let's check that out. It says he holds the IBF, so he has the IBF, the WBA, and the WBC, but they didn't have that on the other one. So I guess he does hold all the belts at middleweight, and so it would be Tyson Fury, Canelo Alvarez, and then you would have George Kambosos. These are the only guys that would be damn near completely unified champions. George Kambosos would only need one belt. I believe Tyson Fury has all the belts. Canelo has all the belts. So you have to rank him somewhere. And I forget about Tyson Fury. So I forgot about Tyson Fury. So it would be interesting. He might end up around number 5 now that I think about it. So it would actually be Canelo Alvarez, Tyson Fury, number 2. It would either be Spence or Crawford, number 3. It would either be Spence or Crawford, number 4. And then it would probably be George Kambosos at number 5. And, I forgot about Tyson Fury on the pound for pound ranking. I think it would be a battle between George Kambosos and Terence Crawford for the number 4 spot. Even though I would actually rank George Kambosos higher than Crawford and Spence, simply because he's a completely unified champion. He holds the majority of the belts in his weight. So, I mean, you got to rank him higher than both of those guys because neither one of them has as many belts as George Kambosos has. So, I mean, how does that play out? I mean, how would you actually rank George Kambosos when the new pound for pound come out? Because, I mean, just think about it. So, you got Tyson Fury, He's a unified champion, has all the belts. You got Canelo Alvarez, unified champion, has all the belts. You got George Kambosos, a unified champion, has all those belts. So does he deserve to be ranked? I mean, in the top 3, top 4, top 5? It's going to be interesting. I personally would put him. I would personally put him at number 3. I think he deserves number 3. I think it should be Canelo, Tyson Fury, George Kambosos, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford. I think it should be the top 5 on the pound for pound at the moment. When they come out with the new pound for pound, I think that's fair to all parties involved because Terence Crawford and Errol Spence are not challenging each other. They're not challenging themselves at 147 pounds. Everybody else is fighting, mandatories and the next guy up. They're doing rematches. They're taking losses, because they're having good fights. Then you got Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr., who are just kind of running each other around in circles, chasing each other's tail, playing that I don't want to lose my old game. And, I don't think they deserve to be praised higher than the guys who are actually out here fighting tough fights and winning actually all the belts, holding all the belts. So they actually deserve to be, taken down a rank, at least one ranking. So if Earl Spence is ranked higher than Terence Crawford, I would say you would go Canelo Alvarez number 1 pound for pound, Tyson Fury number 2 pound for pound, George Kambosos number 3, Earl Spence number 4, and Terence Crawford number 5. That's why I think it's fair. And then you can start throwing your Javante Davises, your Devin Haney's, your Teofimos. All of them are six and back. To me personally. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about that. What y'all think that's fair for all parties involved? Or y'all think Spence and Crawford deserve to be ranked higher than that? Now back to the Spence and Crawford 50-50 talk. I just feel like I want to see the fight happen, and I feel like I wish one guy. Oh, my camera's getting a little blurry. Why am I looking blurry on her but not on her? I don't know. I guess I didn't give it enough aperture or something. I just want to see them fight, man. I think it's going to be one of the best fights that we've seen at welterweight in a long time when they do finally get it on. But I'm sick of hearing the excuses from both guys. Purse split. What does a purse split have to do with who's the best at 147 pounds? Because at the end of the day, if it's not going to happen, why don't you guys just move up and wait? If y'all can't make it at 147 pounds, drop those titles. Both of y'all move up to 154 and fight and just get it over with. Because it wouldn't be for no titles at that point. It would just be for who's the better of the two fighters. If the titles are what's holding the fight up, well, both of y'all drop the titles, move up to 150, 152, 154, and get it on at 154. And that way, the titles are not keeping the fight from happening. And then whoever's the winner could go on and fight the Charlos or go ahead and challenge Canelo after that. I think that would make the fight happen a little quicker if you got the titles out of the way. Personally, is that going to happen? Hell no, it's not going to happen because Errol Spence is making way too much money holding those titles the way he's holding them and going and fighting guys, truck drivers for umpteen millions of dollars down in Texas Stadium. And Terence Crawford can basically do the same. He can just hold his belt, go fight, taxi cab drivers in Omaha and make a lot of money doing that, and neither guy has to go fight the other one. I think what will eventually happen though is if they neglect to fight each other and they never end up fighting each other, one of them's going to end up fighting Ugas eventually and getting the and challenging Ugas. Whether they beat Ugas or not, it will be the determining factor. But I think if they don't end up fighting each other, one will fight Ugas and potentially get that belt up off of Ugas. But I think Ugas too is seeing the game that's being played as well, and I think you're going to see him try to position himself to hold on to his belt as long as he can. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with him doing that, but I think that's just the sign of the times. I think all these guys are gonna kind of jockey for position and just try to hold on to their belts as long as they can. I think Ugas has the most. You said Ron hello in the Lois. Ron says he thinks that's fair. You think the 50-50 split is fair? Uh, I don't think it's fair, man. I don't think it's fair to Errol Spence because he is the champion. I think it's simply not fair to him because there's no way Terence Crawford, if he beats him, is going to give him a 50-50 split in the rematch. So in that way, when you look at it like that, it's not fair to Errol Spence Jr. for him to have a 50-50 split. There's no way he gets a 50-50 split in a rematch. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, you got to make it fair for Spence in the first fight because it's definitely not going to be fair for him in the second fight if he loses. Can't we all just get along? I mean, we can. I like both fighters. I'm not taking anything away from either fighter. The problem is it has to be fair for both sides because if Spence loses, is what y'all not thinking about. Okay, if you're a Crawford fan, you want Crawford to win and you want it to be fair for Crawford. But what if Spence loses? If he does a 50-50 split, he has nothing really to gain from the rematch. He's not going to get a lot of money out of the rematch. So he has to get all his money on the first fight in case he loses. That's what y'all not. That's the. I think that's the one thing y'all not understanding is in case of a rematch, he has to get everything he can out of that first fight because he's not getting nothing out of that second fight if he loses. I mean, that's just point blank period. If Errol Spence Jr. loses to Terence Crawford on a 50-50 fight, the rematch is going to be like 70-30, 65-35, for Terence Crawford. So he would be foolish. He would be stupid to take a 50-50 split. The best Terence Crawford's going to get out of Spence is 60-40. That's the best split he's going to get. And if Errol Spence is dumb enough to give him a 50-50 split, and you guys are going to see the problem in the rematch. And then what's going to happen is the rematch is going to get held up for years and years and years because Errol Spence is going to be demanding that 50-50 split back. That's why I said at the beginning, both of these guys are using that as an excuse. Terence Crawford knows there's no way he's going to get a 50-50 split. He already knows why he can't have a 50-50 split. And he knows it, and he's using that as an excuse not to fight him because he knows there's no way in hell he's going to get a 50-50 split because of the rematch, because of what's going to happen in the rematch if he beats him. Like, okay, I'm going to get a 50-50 split, and then I'm going to turn around and get a 70-30 split in the rematch. Like, he's winning on both accounts if he wins that fight. So, I mean, he knows that. He knows, like, hey, all I got to do is keep saying, I want a 50-50 split. And the fight's never going to happen. If he goes down to 60-40, he knows the fight's going to happen. So I basically he's using it as an excuse not to fight him. But I said at the same time, Earl Spence is using it as an excuse too. He's also using it as an excuse not to fight him because he knows Terence Crawford's never going to agree to that 60-40 split. So both guys, actually, I feel like neither guy wants to fight the other guy because they don't want to lose the zero. Neither guy wants to lose the O. It's Terence Crawford. It's basically on Terence Crawford to make the fight. It's not on Errol Spence. And I know Crawford fans are gonna feel like that's unfair, but that's simply what it is. If the fight's gonna happen, it's gonna be because Terence Crawford agreed to the proper purse split based off of if he wins, he's gonna have the majority purse in the rematch. If the fight's gonna happen, it's on Terence Crawford to make it happen. I don't care how you slice it, how you cut it. He just simply has to take the 60-40 if he really wants to fight Spence. Now, obviously, he really don't want to fight Spence because he knows all of this. He already knows all of this. And he already knows all this. Earl Spence already knows all this. They've been through the negotiating process already. The lawyers have talked all this out. You know, the two promoters have talked all this out. They already know what's a fair split. They already know what has to be in place for the fight to happen. And so the only thing now is just excuses and dragging fans along for the ride, basically. And if anybody else is arguing a point uh, of there's a fairness that has to go along to this with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's not the A side. Terence Crawford's not bringing the bigger pay-per-view numbers. Terence Crawford's not the unified champion. So a 60-40 split is not that far-fetched. I don't even understand why people are upset with that number. You know, that's a fair number. I think the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather was a 60-40 It might have been worse than that in the Maypac fight. I think the Maypac fight might have been more like us. I think he got like $200 million for that fight, and Pacquiao only got $100 million. You know, that's definitely not. That's like that's more like 70-30. You know, I think it might have been more like a 70-30 split in the Maypac fight. And these were superstars bringing huge pay-per-view numbers to the table. Way bigger than anything that Errol Spence or Terence Crawford, 6 or 7 times bigger than anything Terence Crawford and Errol Spence combined are bringing to the table. So, I mean, if he's getting a purse split that's, that far off, I mean, why is it so hard for Terence Crawford to accept that you're gonna have to miss out on 10% of the purse based on the fact that you might win that fight? Ron says Spence and Crawford need to fight now. Crawford is going to KO Spence. Trust me. I don't know about no KO. Now I still got Errol Spence winning the fight. Don't get me wrong. I still got Spence winning. And I only favor him because Spence does what he does consistently in every fight. Now, don't make that doesn't say I'm a bigger fan of Spence than I am of Crawford. I just favor him in that fight, and I'm really favoring him in that fight because I feel like this. If Terence Crawford is that confident he's going to win, he would have accepted that 60-40 already because he knows there's no other way of slicing that pie to make that fight. He already knows that. So he's holding on to this excuse of getting a 50-50 with Spence, maybe because he thinks he's going to lose the fight. It seems like he's trying to milk as much as he can out of that fight because he thinks he's going to lose. If you ask me, that's how I'm looking at it. And I think that's why you see Errol Spence. Every time you see Errol Spence, he's like this, kick back with his feet up, chuckling to himself. because he knows what's up. He knows what's up. I think he's hip to the game now, and he feels like, well, hey, if you're not going to accept that, well, I just ride this out because I'm at PBC. We got all the welterweights. I mean, you have no leverage and power over me at all. None whatsoever. And he can play these hold up the title games because of the leverage that he has. And Terence Crawford has no leverage. Just kind of out there on his own island, uh, and he's fishing. If you ask me, he's fishing for as much as he can get out of that fight because he thinks he's going to lose. Hey, take it how you want to take it, man. I know a lot of the people that follow my channel are more Crawford fans than they are Spence fans. So I know a lot of people kind of take that badly, but I mean, why else is Terence Crawford sitting around waiting for a 50-50 split he's never going to get? You're never getting a 50-50 split. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen unless Spence somehow loses. And if he loses, he has no more titles. So the fight loses all of its luster at that point. So I really don't get what Terence Crawford fans think that they are going to accomplish, or thinking he's going to accomplish by asking for 50-50 that he's never getting. Never going to get it. Never going to get it. And if it does happen, I'll be the first person to say Errol Spence is the dumbest fighter in the history of boxing. Because if he loses, I mean, he's going to get pennies for that rematch. It just is what it is. You can take it how you take it. You can feel how you want to feel, but that's just the truth. That's the business of boxing. You can't be that dumb to not see it that. I mean, now I'm not trying to call anybody stupid or dumb, but you can't be that foolish and not see it the way it has to go. It's simply the way it has to go. So you think Crawford is unsure of himself? 100%. Why isn't he taking a 60-40 split yet? If you're that confident that you're going to beat him, the money shouldn't matter. Because you already know. Look at it this way. If he gets, let's just say they split in $100 million. 60-40 of $100 million would be, like 60 million to Spence, 40 million to Crawford. If Crawford wins that fight and they have a rematch, and let's say the rematch does 150 million, and Crawford's going to get a 70% to a 30% split of that money, which is somewhere around the 80 to 90 million dollar mark. It'd be like $90 million to Terence Crawford's like 20 million. So obviously, if he thinks he's going to win that fight, 60-40 is a hell of a good split. That's a great split if you think you're going to win. Because what you're going to get off the rematch is going to be ridiculous. That's why I think people are not looking at. Nobody's paying attention to that factor. Spence really has to do nothing. He doesn't have to do anything. He has both the belts, and he has the pay-per-view number, so he can just sit back and wait for him to accept the fight. Or he can go fight other low-level fighters, beat up on them in Texas Stadium, make millions of dollars doing it at the same time, and still just sit around and wait for Terence Crawford to finally say, hey, okay, 60-40 ain't that bad. He's definitely got to be unsure of himself, or he would have took that 60-40 split a long time ago. A long time ago. Any thinking man is looking to the rematch. They're not looking at the first fight. The first fight is you trying to get those belts. He shouldn't even be focused on the money. It shouldn't even be about the money for the first fight. The first fight should be about getting those belts from Errol Spence. The second fight should be about the money. For Errol Spence, it's the other way around. He already has those belts. So the first fight is not about the belts for him. It's about the money. He already has the belts. For Terence Crawford, it should be about the belts. For Errol Spence, it should be about the money. Ryan Lamb says both Crawford and Spence are unsure of themselves. I would agree with that. And if you watched it from the beginning, and I said that at the beginning, I think both of them are using it as an excuse. But you have to remember, Errol Spence has the leverage. He has the pay-per-view numbers. He has the 2 title belts. So he can just sit. Whether he feels like he can win that fight or not, he doesn't have to make the fight. He can just sit back and wait for the fight to be made in his favor. You know, he doesn't have to make this fight happen. Terence Crawford has to make the fight happen because he doesn't bring the pay-per-view numbers and he doesn't have the majority of the titles. That's simply how it goes. I mean, look at it like this. Let's say George Kambosos wanted a 50-50 split to fight Teofimo Lopez. He would have never got that fight. That fight would have never happened. He wouldn't be the unified champion today. He would still be sitting around waiting for his opportunity because he didn't want to agree to the proper purse split. And now he took a smaller amount of money because now he has all those titles and he can go command any dollar sign he wants for any fight that he wants. Y'all not looking at it right. And it's not really fans' fault. It's the boxers' fault because they've made the titles about nothing. The titles don't mean nothing. But the titles are your leverage. You know, it's really what it is. The titles are your leverage in boxing. Nice chains. Where you buy them at? Hold on, where my box at? I'll show you where I got it at. His name is Lil John. Little John's Jewelers. Little John's Derby City Jewelers. Look him up. He's a cool dude, man. He look Oriental guy. Uh Funny guy, man. He's cool, man. He's cool. He's expensive too, but he's cool. So check him out, man. Derby City Jewelers, Little John in Louisville, Kentucky. But back to what I was saying. It definitely makes you It definitely makes you wonder why they seem to be ducking each other. Exactly. I mean, why would they be carrying this on for so long? Like, I mean, what are they going to be, 60? And then they fight? They're going to do the same thing Mayweather and Pacquiao did? Sit around and wait. It's obviously a reason that they're sitting around waiting each other out. And I'm telling you, Errol Spence is laughing his butt off. He's sitting somewhere laughing because he knows at the end of the day, I have all the leverage. I don't have to make the fight. If he wants to be the unified champion of the world, he has to come and do it the way I want to do it. I'm already a unified champion. There's only one backdoor way for Terence Crawford to get what he wants, and he has to go fight you guys to do that. And he's not going to fight Ugas because Ugas already beat him. Ugas beat him in the amateurs. It's not that hard to figure out, man. He could have easily fought Ugas after Ugas fought Pacquiao. He could have been like, "No, man, I don't want." Why is he fighting Sean Porter? Somebody explain that to me. Why is Terence Crawford fighting Sean Porter? In other words, Crawford needs Spence more than Spence needs Crawford. Yes. Unless Crawford can get that belt from Ugas, he'll have more negotiating power at that point. But unless he can get that belt from Ugas, it just is what it is. Spence don't need him. At the end of the day, Spence can go fight Ugas. Spence can wait for 8 months until Ugas is finished with his little mandatory, the mandatory tournament that they got him in, and be like, well, you know what? I'm not even gonna fight nobody until Ugas is ready. I want Ugas. That means Terence Crawford has to go and fight a bunch of bums for the next year until Spence goes and gets the belt from Ugas, or goes fight Ugas for the belt. And what's Crawford gonna do about it? You tell me. How does Crawford stop that from happening? Uh, Ryan Lamb, Thurman still an option for both. Thurman brings nothing to the table though. Spence is not going to risk taking a loss to Thurman because Spence can very easily just move up and wait. He can easily hold his belts hostage, go take a fight at 152, 153, and and not do nothing for the next 8 or 9 months. Say, hey, I'm gonna wait for Ugas. I'm gonna go fight at 150. I'm gonna wait for Ugas to finish his tournament, and then I'm gonna fight Ugas and unify the titles with Ugas. What does Terence Crawford do at that point? Oh, Terence Crawford's gonna have a whole lot of egg on his. Crawford's gonna have a whole lot of egg on his face at that point. I mean, he's gonna be sitting around fighting the Sean Porters of the world for the next year for no reason. Still with that one belt, still walking around with that one belt, trying not to lose his own. Somebody got to explain to me what at that point, if Spence says, I don't want to fight Crawford. I don't need Crawford. You don't want the 60-40 split? Oh, I don't need you. I'm gonna have to go fight at 150. I'm gonna wait for Ugas to finish the tournament, and then I'm gonna fight Ugas and unify titles with Ugas. Because I know one thing, Ugas, he might have said he wanted 50-50, but he know he ain't gonna get no 50-50. And especially after he goes through this tournament, he gonna take whatever purse split he can get out of Errol Spence fight. If he can make it through that tournament with all those titles. I mean, with the one title that he has. So you tell me at that point, this will be like a year from. This will all be like a year from now. What does Terence Crawford do in the meantime? Who does he go fight in the meantime that even matters? We go fight Thurman, because I think Thurman can beat Crawford. I actually think Thurman will give Crawford a really good fight. I mean, who else does he go fight? I mean, he can. I think an option for Crawford would be, okay, let's say Errol Spence decides to hold the belts hostage for another year, goes and fights at 150 because he's waiting for Ugas to finish the tournament out. Well, I think Terence Crawford could fight Josh Taylor. This Josh Taylor's coming up to 147. That's definitely an option for him. He could say, okay, well, I'll fight Josh Taylor in the springtime. He's still gonna have to sit around and wait for another, because I think the tournament with Ugas will be over in I think they said March or May or something like that. And okay, so and we know that Spence is gonna fight his one fight at 150, and he's gonna wait for Ugas. They'll probably, if that happens, they'll fight sometime next summer. What is Terence Crawford gonna be doing all this time? He's gonna end up fighting another bum, knocking him out because he's fighting a bum. Everybody's gonna keep saying he's better than Spence, and at the end of the day, he's still gonna have to take the 60-40 split. So why not just go ahead, accept it for what it is? You're not fighting. The first fight with you and Spence is not for the money for Crawford. It's for the titles. Crawford needs to be more assertive about his career and not let Bob Arum dictate all his moves. I actually think Bob Arum had his best interest at bet because I think Bob Arum was probably telling him to take the 60-40 split. And I'm thinking that Terence Crawford was trying to get the 50-50 split. Because Bob Arum's not new to this. Bob Arum's not stupid. Now Bob Arum might have not wanted to risk a loss on a 60-40, and just decided not to take it. Because at no point Bob Arum could have made the fight. Terence Crawford. It's not up to Terence Crawford to make fights. Bob Arum makes the fights. So if Bob Arum wanted to make the fight, he would have made the fight at whatever purse split he felt good enough for him and his promotional company. So I would never blame it on Bob Arum because Bob Arum's about money. If Bob Arum uh, if Bob Arum knew he was going to get $20 million off that 60-40 split, he would have took it. And if he knows he's not going to get any money off a 50-50 split, Bob Arum's a pig. He's not going to sit there and keep trying to hold up not a fight that's never going to happen. He wants money. His thing is to get money. So he's going to try to make the fight any way he possibly can to get as much money for his piggish self that he possibly can. Y'all look at this stuff kind of wrong sometimes. You gotta, these people are very greedy, and they do it for their selfish reasons. So I would never say Bob Arum kept that fight from happening. I would actually think it would be, oh, am I frozen? Why am I frozen on one and not the other? That is very strange. Frozen. Well, I think I'm gonna get ready to wrap it up, man. Because I don't know why I'm frozen on one and not the other screen. But these people are very greedy. Bob Arum is a very greedy person. So I don't think Bob Arum would hold a fight up that he could potentially make a fistful of money off of over a 10% split. He's going to try to make that fight any way possible so he can get his greedy hands on as much of the money as he possibly can. So, yeah, you look at it how you want to look at it, man. I think Crawford's just he's playing this wrong. He's looking at it wrong. Like the George Kambosos example I gave you, Kambosos played it how he was supposed to play it. Kambosos went for the titles and not the money. Terence Crawford's going for the money and not the titles. And that's the opposite of what he's supposed to be doing. Errol Spence has the titles. So he's not fighting for the titles. He's fighting for a title, but he's already a unified champion. So he's not fighting for the titles. You know what I'm saying? He's not the challenger in this fight. Terence Crawford's the challenger in this fight. He's fighting for the money, and Crawford's fighting for the titles. That's what y'all forgetting. Because they've made these titles mean nothing. I mean, people don't look at it the proper way anymore. So I think that's what you guys are missing. George Kambosos was fighting for the titles and not the money in that fight, in the Teofimo fight. Teofimo was fighting for the money, not the titles. That's the part that y'all missing. And I know y'all wanna look at it in a different way because y'all like Terence Crawford so much. But you gotta put the like for Crawford aside and look at it from a sports, aspect. Let's say look at it like from home court advantage. Like if you're going into the playoffs, the team with the better record gets the home court advantage, right? It's basically the same thing. So Terence Crawford, he doesn't have the home court. He doesn't have the better resume at this point. So he's getting no home court advantage. Errol Spence has the better resume. He's a unified champion. Brings the pay-per-view numbers. So he gets home court advantage. He gets the majority of the purse. That's home court advantage. And he gets to pick the venue. So I'm going to say it one more time before I get out of here. Since we got 7 people in here, I appreciate y'all for coming through. Hit that like for me. Pre-subscribe. I'm gonna explain this one more time. Terence Crawford is fighting for the titles. Okay, hear me out. Terence Crawford is fighting for the titles. Errol Spence, when Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight, this is how it goes. Errol Spence is fighting for the money. Terence Crawford's fighting for the titles. Terence Crawford should be focusing on getting the belts. Because once he got the belts, then he can go after the money. Errol Spence is simply fighting for a title and a buttload of money. He's not worried about the belts. So if it's up to Terence Crawford to make that fight, it's up to Terence Crawford to accept the purse split they're offering to him, or just sit around and do nothing, or move up to 150. You know, Spence is going to laugh this out as long as he possibly can, and I think it's fair on his behalf. I think he's allowed to do that because he has the leverage. It's not. Is it right in a sport to be able to do that? No. I wish it was like basketball, football, where these guys had to fight on a schedule, where you have to take these fights at a specific time every year. But boxing's not like that. It's a game of leverage, and Errol Spence has all the leverage. If you ain't got nothing else to say, man, I think I'm gonna end it there. Drop me some comments before I get up out of here, man. It's been a pretty interesting conversation, man. It depends on how you look at it. Who's your favorite fighter? How you gonna judge this whole 50-50 talk? But I hope I gave y'all some talking points, some stuff to go argue with other channels about, and some stuff to argue with the other people on this channel about, man. You know, just good talking points, man. But I do feel like Spence has all the leverage, man. Spence has all the leverage no matter how you look at it. Spence doesn't have to make this fight. Crawford has to make this fight. And I just hope he comes to his senses, man. This is what I hope, that now that he's supposedly not with Bob Arum anymore, I hope he goes signs with PBC. Al Heyman sits him down and really explains to him what he has to gain from taking a 60-40 split, and not what he's losing in the aspect of dollar signs, because somebody's not explaining that to him correctly. If he really thinks that he deserves 50-50, that's because his team and his lawyers and his promoter were not explaining it correctly to him, and they were trying to gas his head up for something they knew he couldn't get. And at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, go back and watch this from the beginning. Both sides are using it as an excuse. All right, man. It's your boy Cardinal Red Room Sports, Ali Land Boxing Talking. We are out of here.
Negative, okay, nothing further.
All that seems to be on my mind is
Alright, that's flight 62, 1096.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
Negative, okay, nothing further.
All that seems to be on my mind is
Alright, that's flight 62, 1096.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. I just wanna touch a onion. She just want a couple hundred. I got mad and changed the subject. Then I got drunk and said fuck it. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. Pull up with that Aquafina. Yellow bone, her name is Tina. Tina like the hit casinos. Tina could snort a whole kilo. Tina like to fight and argue. Bye bye Tina, bitch, you are you? Met a dark skin chick named Anna. Anna like that marijuana. Anna was from the Bahamas. At least that's what she said. I assume she's honest. I apologize, Your Honor. I just wanted me some money. You can't tell these niggas frontin'. You can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. This is for my hustling bitches. Nigga, don't act so suspicious. Hustle hot as hell, but you swear they snitching. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna come up missing. You don't wanna come up missing. I just want a couple bitches. Put them in the ring, make a split decision. I'm trying to slow down with the sinning. I pray to God, no, you forgive me. Me and God had a discussion. He said, tell him. I said, you can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
Negative, okay, nothing further. Just,
All that seems to be on my mind is
Alright, that's flight, 1096.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
Negative, okay, nothing further.
All that seems to be on my mind is
Alright, that's flight,
hustling.
1096.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. I just wanna touch a onion. She just want a couple hundred.
My bad, y'all. My bad, y'all. I forgot to cut the mic on. Turn my mic up. I can't hear you, huh? I can't hear you. Cut it up some more. But what I was saying was it's not a 50-50 fight. It's never going to be a 50-50 fight. If Terence Crawford wants it to be a 50-50 or expects it to be a 50-50 fight, the fight's never going to happen. And like Ron said, man, it's up to Terence Crawford to just humble himself and realize that you are not fighting for the money in the first fight. You're fighting for the titles. In the second fight, you're fighting for the money. The first fight, Spence is fighting for the money, not the titles, unless he loses. And in the second fight, if he loses, he'll be fighting for the titles and not the money. So, I mean, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you want to look at it, it is what it is, man. You can't change what it has to be and what the truth is. The truth is the truth. Believe it or not, accept it. It's your boy, and we are out of here.
Negative, okay, nothing further. Just,
All that seems to be on my mind is
Alright, 10-4, 62, 10-96.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
Negative, okay, nothing further.
All
Just,
that
shake
seems
hands, get a corner.
to be on my mind is
Alright, 10-4, 62, 10-96.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. I just wanna touch a onion. She just want a couple hundred. I got mad and changed the subject. Then I got drunk and said fuck it. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. Pull up with that Aquafina. Yellow bone, her name is Tina. Tina like the hit casinos. Tina could snort a whole kilo. Tina like to fight and argue. Bye bye Tina, bitch, who are you? Met a dark skin chick named Anna. Anna like that marijuana. Anna was from the Bahamas. At least that's what she said. I assume she's honest. I apologize, Your Honor. I just wanted me some money. You can't tell these niggas frontin'. You can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. This is for my hustling bitches. Nigga, don't act so suspicious. Hustle hot as hell, but you swear they snitching. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna come up missing. You don't wanna come up missing. I just want a couple bitches. Put them in the ring, make a split decision. I'm trying to slow down with the sinning. I pray to God, no, he'll forgive me. Me and God had a discussion. He said, tell him, I said, you can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to
Money, cars, clothes, hoes, blow, drove. In the streets, man, that's all we know. Get money on the late nights till we all get dope. The fans are riding in the daytime so we all get low. Yo, they trying to stop our show, stop us from copping home. Lock us down, ship us out, they really trying to stop our show. Go touch the pole, the baggers can't stop my road. 6 or 8,